Right, good morning everybody. So here we are with Mark Cameron for our last wrap, our last chat of the year, Mark, and a lot to talk about. And of course, as we go into the Christmas break, a very busy bowling period. So what's your summary of 2019? How do you think the year's looked and achievements? And
Yeah, I think my bowls game improved quite considerably through the year. Certainly the reputation to my bowls game improved a lot.
Right?
I'm not sure whether factually. I've got two big games this weekend and next weekend. I've got the pairs tomorrow and junior singles Saturday week. So yes, big time. How did the year go? Really good. And I kind of a little bit of planning for this discussion. I did a presentation to Sport New Zealand about a month ago on how bowls is going in this country, and it really is hats off to the bowls community, to the clubs and the volunteers for all the work that's going in, because there's some good stories in our sport, some excellent stories. And I was just showing you before. There's I don't know if you can capture that here, but there's a graph that shows our membership over the last 10 years, and right at the last couple of years, our membership's going up, and probably more importantly. This isn't great TV probably, but there's another chart that shows our casual participation, and that's the number that's really going up. So numbers are good, but also some of the I don't know, the change that's happening has been exceptional.
Certainly a change, no doubt about that.
And I'll run through a couple, and you're involved in two or three as well. So hats off there. What we've done in the television space, in the streaming, in the video space, I think is exceptional. 2 years ago, wasn't a camera.
We had a couple of mobile phones and some outdoor furniture.
Yeah, and a piece of tape.
That's right.
Yeah. And a broomstick. And now we are, in fact, we've just signing at the moment with Sky Sport a 2-year agreement around televising bowls in significant volume. So on top of the Bowls 3.5 we've just had. So we've made some really good strides in the past
so
year.
So just to take the Sky thing with the bowls, so does that mean that the likes of, let's say, the final stage of the Summerset Nationals, the Intercentre, etc., will be on a Sky platform for a public for subscribing viewer?
They'll be on a free Sky platform to start with, so you don't need to be a subscriber. So Sky have come out with a product called Sky Next. Now, Sky Next is basically YouTube TV. So you can jump on your computer, internet, go into YouTube, type in Summerset Nationals 2020, and you'll be able to watch the finals live.
That's a big move forward, isn't it?
Oh, it's a big move, and Alex is doing the keyboard today for this. But Alex, if you pop into the Bowls New Zealand website, click on TV, I think it's one of the big headings, that'll tell you how to access the Summerset Nationals. So it'll be there. It'll also be on Stuff as well, and that'll happen right through the year. So into clubs, into centre, North versus South Island, they're all going to be there live and free. And free access too. So you don't need to be a Sky subscriber here. We don't need to be a paid Sky subscriber. You need to. You might have to sign in through whatever mechanism. But
there's a login, obviously, that you go in, which is
which is understandable on their part. So really big strides in 2019 around TV and the awareness of our game, and as exciting as the Bowls 3.5 final was, the big positive is the number of non-bowls people that are talking about bowls, that are talking about
very much so
their Stoke team or their Nelson team doing well in the final or whatever it might have been.
There was an excellent article which I happened to see last night that the girl from Stoke, in fact, did on Sky, who was out there, I believe, on Wednesday night at the final.
Okay.
And she did with Gorham Paladin, and it featured on Sky, and it was really, really good. It was about Stoke, the community.
Yes.
But she highlighted that the achievement of the Bowls win on the Wednesday night, and it was very good. Great story.
Oh, good. And that's it. So television 2019 for our sport, we've come a long way and really quickly. So thank you to everyone involved in that. Next year, I'll just rattle off a bit of a list actually. Next year we've acquired the rights, or we're hosting the IBD, the Disabled Bowls World Champs, down in Christchurch. So we've just announced that, so that's November of 2020. I think that's really exciting for our sport. And off the back of the Parajacks playing in the Bowls 3.5, it really shows that our sport is all about inclusiveness.
Very much so.
And you can be whoever and perform socially or competitively in the game of bowls. So that's really exciting. Our high performance program is coming along, and we'll talk a little bit more, I presume, about multi-nations and Trans-Tasman, but I think that's made some good strides. The Summer of Bowls calendar has started to find its mark now in the country. A number of events open to anybody to play in. I think that's really exciting, and the coverage that we're getting out of that. Most of the decisions now, I think, have been vindicated around the restructure of the national events. Splitting
Absolutely.
nationals,
No doubt about that.
North versus South. We're bringing in, we're going to ramp up the secondary schools, the champions. We got some wrong, fix them up, and they'll hopefully be here to stay for a while.
Interclub's back in it as well this year, is that?
Interclub Sevens is back too next year, so I think that's really exciting as well. So we, a big year in that space for us, and a big summer, I guess, as well. I talked before about the para community, but really bringing them into the mainstream for our sport. Para Jacks, the world champs. There'll be a disabled disciplines within the Summerset Nationals this year, which I think is very, it's pretty exciting for the sport. So we're pleased with that. Probably haven't talked about it enough because it's too complicated sometimes, but a new affiliation system for our sport.
I've had to talk about that this week.
Yeah. Oh, we have many talks about it, and it'll be one of those ones that just takes a while. It takes 2 or 3 years to bed down.
Absolutely.
And as clubs start to realise or start to understand the decision that's been made, I'm very confident that they'll appreciate the significance of this decision, which is really meaning that you can go out and create a $20 membership and not be burdened with a $70 player levy.
Well, it's far better for clubs.
Oh, it is. In the longer run, it's much better. Yes, it will hurt some of those smaller provincial clubs that are really struggling. And on Bowls New Zealand's part, we need to support them individually or by exception. But for the bulk of the clubs, this new model should work really well.
I think it's also fair to say, Mark, from my travels around the place and talking to people, that the buy-in from clubs on change now, of so many of the clubs now, the buy-in is significant, isn't it? Positive, in fact, to change.
Yeah, I think so, and I think I'm, I guess almost representative of that. I'm quite comfortable walking in any club and talking about bowls, talking about their bowls and what we're doing.
Which is a change from 2.5 years, 2.5 years ago.
I can't talk to that, but
from when you first started, all I'm saying is that we've seen a positive transition of acceptance of change and around the plane of the game, affiliation, a whole raft of things.
Yeah, and it's hats off to the community for that, for the bowls community, for the clubs and the people within the clubs, that they're prepared to listen and move with that change. And also we put up a hand pretty freely here. We get some things wrong.
Absolutely.
And at least what we're prepared to do is listen.
There's no question about that.
And we'll talk a little bit about Bowls 3.5 later, but I'm fairly sure we've got the interclub for Bowls 3.5 wrong in this country. We need to change that around. So we might have a bit of a chat around that later.
Sure. So
I'm going to carry on, if I may, just a little bit more, because there's some other good stuff, like the communication. I know we touched on it before, but the ability for Bowls New Zealand to communicate with clubs and clubs to communicate directly with Bowls New Zealand, I think is really good. Yes, the centres absolutely have a role in this, but I think now that we are seeing more communication between club and Bowls New Zealand, for clubs looking to build a covered facility, come and talk to Bowls New Zealand, because we can share what's happening out there, etc. So the communication, whether that's Facebook, these sort of interviews, website, the stories that Rob Davis does, there's a heck of a lot more communication out there with the community, so I'm pleased with that. We're working on with Northland a little membership pilot system, which is tracking along. This year we achieved Sport New Zealand's prized governance mark, so hats off to the board and what our board's doing in this space. I think the awards evening is going from strength to strength in terms of recognising people. I think that's fantastic, and it's interesting from a governance now that we're starting to now think about the 10 years time, not 2 years time. So we're starting to think about
That's
where the market and where we need to be in 10 years' time, because there's a danger with sport that you operate in the now too much.
correct, absolutely.
So we are changing in that space. We've got some really good information around our clubs. We've got a great census. We've got so much capital improvement happening in our sport. You know, we've got, you know, what did I see? The chaps from Thames came up the other day to look at building a covered facility in Thames.
Great.
At one of the clubs down there. You know, I visited 2 clubs in Christchurch a month ago, and they were both, you know, they have plans well underway to build covered facilities.
And Bowls New Zealand communicate and work with them and ideas.
In whatever capacity is required. So it's not for us to go in there and lord over decisions, and it's to go in there and say, how can we support? How can we make this happen? Not to make a judgment on whether they're right or wrong with their decision either. It's really just to go, how can we support you to get further down the path? But there's just so much change. We talked a number-wise, I think we're in that 50 to 60 space now of significant capital investment in bowling clubs in New Zealand. And that's pretty exciting for any sport.
I think another thing which highlights the buy-in from clubs, and I've got some sort of vested interest in this, I suppose you could say, but if we take the club insurance program as an example, right?
Yep.
We did now just a fraction under 190 clubs
Yep.
that have come on board in 18 months, 50, around about, that have come on board. So 190 clubs have bought into the Bowls New Zealand insurance scheme,
Yep.
which has a balance sheet enhancement as well for Bowls New Zealand, and of course reduced premiums for the clubs, not all the clubs obviously, but that's a good buy-in, isn't it?
Well, and it's meant now that we're going to do another survey out in the next month, and we're asking questions like, do you have FPOS? Who's your internet provider? Etc. Where do you get your power from? So we can actually start to build off those and build other schemes to this as well. But the Apex scheme was brilliant for that. Prebbles was equally good.
Absolutely.
We're looking to do one around, build a system around artificial greens, you know, and getting some preferred supplier relationships there. Because there's a number of suppliers of artificial greens, and they're not all as good as, not all the same. So whatever we can do in that space. So, and that was probably my last point, was just around that whole commercial space, is that as an organisation, we are becoming less reliant on membership, on levies, and we are generating other revenues, be that Summerset, as you said, the relationships with Prebbles and Apex, etc. Our Dynasty clothing relationship. There's some nice commercial opportunities. Sky TV.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really positive for our sport, and we're in this race now with the other sporting bodies. What's great though is that we're, as an organisation, Bowls New Zealand, we're reasonably dynamic. We can make decisions on the fly, but we don't.
It's a big.
We haven't got a bureaucracy,
correct,
to drive, and we've also got a community, the clubs and the people who are, and having been in other sports. Who are interested in and motivated by change. I'm not saying everybody, Kevin, but the majority are actually at a point where change. We know that change is inevitable.
I think there's two things about that, Mark, and being involved in Bowls administration for a long, long time. The word of change has always been sort of a fear word in a lot of clubs, right? And that's not because the fear of change but how do we do it? What resources do we need? Who do we communicate with? And what's going to be the outcome? Well, with the partnership, as I'd really call it now, with the clubs with Bowls New Zealand, a lot of that has been led by Bowls New Zealand. And from doing that, it takes that fear away of a lot of clubs to change.
And I don't think it's led by Bowls New Zealand. It's led by the clubs themselves. What we're doing now is we're communicating that change. So we're actually able to show that it's happening all around the country. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to get concerned about at all.
So moving on then from that, and if I sit back to where we were, let's say 2 years ago when we started doing these, where we're going to now, we used to have a plethora of questions about this and that, about change. Now we can actually tell people now of actually what's happening, what's going on, and that's, to me, that's a big pat on the back to Bowls New Zealand and the bowling community for accepting what's happened. And look, I in my role that I do, the change has been dramatic, and I enjoy it. It's great, It's, And I think, and the other thing is, to be fair to the TV thing, the Spark thing, the Sky thing, sorry, we are now delivering a very professional product out there to the viewing audience, wherever you may be.
Yep. Oh, and let's be real about this too. Is that it's not how do you put it? Not everybody likes the commentators for Bowls 3-5, so you can't win everybody in this. We get some things right, some things wrong, or you just can't please everybody. But we're okay with that. We're understanding that our space is at the moment is just to get bowls out there and get people talking about bowls.
It's a different commentary structure, really, Mark, to be fair.
That's just the commentary. But the other decisions that we make, they work for some, they won't work for others.
Correct.
And I reflected on the other day. I was at a bowling club and I was playing, unsurprisingly, and this was a little club with about 40 members, one green. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, actually, this club doesn't want to change, and neither does it need to change.
Correct.
So it's not Bowls New Zealand's place to come in and change and try and change this club. They break even every year. They got a little bit of money in reserves. Their 40 members are happy. They all got their roles in the club. They don't need to grow. They don't want to grow. So we can't. Our solution, which is to change the bowls world, doesn't have to apply to them.
Well, it suits their geographic and demographic in a number of examples. And you just
they're happy.
They are, but they also are appreciative of getting the information from Bowls New Zealand. Whereas that to them makes them feel good.
If we can do that little thing, if we can go along and save them $500 on their insurance policy,
absolutely,
great. Tick. Thanks, Bowls New Zealand.
Well, I'll give you an example. There's a particular club. Everything will remain nameless. I just did the figures this morning.
Yes.
Based upon what their insurance premiums are, that's the equivalent of $120 per member to cover their insurance premium. Now, if you can then get that to, say, $80, that's direct to your bottom line.
Yeah, exactly.
But $120 per member to pay their insurance.
Oh, it's the extra $500 that can go to painting the fence, or
absolutely,
or whatever it might be, or might go into an extra Christmas tournament hamper day.
Well, the good thing is the clubs are getting the benefits from it at the end of the day, aren't they? So shortly we start the Summerset Nationals, 2nd of January.
Yep.
Around the greens of Christchurch.
Yeah, 20 odd clubs, I think it is.
Yeah, entry looks pretty strong.
Probably about 50, 60 down on last year. In terms of singles and pairs, and you could argue Auckland versus South Island or Christchurch. I'm sure there's something
normally been a trend.
What's fascinated me though is that I think the numbers were something like 80% of the entries last year played in the singles and pairs event. This year, only 60% are playing in singles and pairs, which means there's a lot of people from the South Island, Christchurch, Canterbury area, who are just entering for the pairs.
Yeah, I think that's true, because a lot of players, a lot of people out there, for whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable playing singles, or it's not their forte, or whatever. Yeah. But them and their mate can line up and play in the pairs. And just on that note, talking to Helen Stallard this morning, there is still one vacancy available in the women's pairs and the women's singles. So
no means singles?
No,
we can't play the pairs then?
We're out, right?
Oh, okay.
But the women's pairs and women's singles are still one spot available.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, and this is from a high performance point of view as well, because it's a big year this year at the World Champs, of course, coming up, but I think the quality of the field that's assembled for Christchurch it's pretty good. It's very good, in fact.
Yeah. If you are looking to make the Blackjacks, for example, for World Champs, you need to be there at the Summerset Nationals this year. Now, I know there's one exception because someone's having a baby.
Correct.
Or somebody's wife's having a baby at that time of year. But it's really important, and it's showing that the event is prized around the country.
And really, let's say the high performance players, Blackjacks, and other high performance members have respected that, and they're all turning up, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
98% of them, they're turning up.
They're coming from Australia for this event.
Yeah, so you got to respect that, don't you? That's good. So we're looking for. So, Alex, we're putting out there what we're doing, but I do know that as from the commencement date of the 2nd of January, Alex and myself will be doing a wrap of every day's play, just what's happened and results, etc. And then, of course, as we get through to the final stage, I think from the 6th to the 8th, I think those are the days.
Yeah, quarter, semis and finals.
Yeah, so we'll be covering those on the various Bolt New Zealand platforms now, and the Sky one, of course. And we'll be, Bolt New Zealand will be communicating that, of course, out to everybody. And so, great chance to, and you don't have to be sitting at home in front of your TV. You can be sitting in the camping ground on your laptop, on your iPad or your phone or wherever.
Scary world we live in. Or you could be at the club watching it live too.
You could be,
Kevin.
And normally Christchurch are good supporters, so I'm picking at Bowls Papanui that we'll have a good number along there.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward. Is it
Bowls Papanui, or is it Papanui Bowling Club?
Papanui Club.
The one behind the Workingmen's, yes.
Yeah,
where's the finals?
Yeah. We had 3 attempts, but we got it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to being there, and of course looking forward to Brenda Van Nistelrooy and myself bringing you. With our team bringing you the quarterfinals, semis and finals. And on that, of course, we've just recently brought live the Multi-Nations in Trans-Tasman, which we played on the Gold Coast.
Yep.
And the Trans-Tasman, of course, was also the development side and the over-60s playing alongside our blackjack side. And so what's your thoughts on how that all went from a...
From a performance perspective, I'll say slightly disappointing. I think it's hard to get a measure on it.
It's fair.
I think Commonwealth Games was disappointing.
Yeah.
Asia Pacific's was great. It was a good result. Slightly disappointing. The ladies, blackjack ladies, ended up losing the overall Trans-Tasman. Was it sets differential?
On different points differential off the last round. Yep.
What do I say? Sets differential. That sounds like a bowls 3-5, I think, doesn't it?
No, it was on points differential in that last round. Because New Zealand, in fact, could have lost the last 2 games, but providing it was on a minimal differential. But it was not to be.
So the ladies were competitive. The blokes not as much in both multi-nations and Trans-Tasman. Certainly in multi-nations, we delivered. We targeted 5 medals and we got 5 medals, which was a real positive. But there's some work there to be done. And we've got to remember a little bit here, and you don't like to make excuses, but Australia, number 1 nation on Australia soil, that's a tough ask in sport.
Yep. Well,
we're watching the Black Caps play at the moment.
I agree, and from my viewpoint, I agree with your sentiment about, I'd call it disappointing in overall. We saw in the multi-nations, the other thing that I noticed was that the calibre of the whole field was pretty high. Ireland and Wales, South Africa.
Australia was Malta.
The 3 Australian teams there, really. But it was strong. And it was great to see the likes of Ireland out there playing.
Which was a great. In terms of preparation for world champs, you want strong competition, I assume, from a high performance going into it, so you can test players. Additional to that, though, the over 60s fronted up and. They were there in the Trans-Tasman for the first time in 20 years.
A long time, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was really exciting. I was there for the capping of the over 60s players, and I didn't think as we got older we got so emotional, but there's some pretty proud people, and rightly so, who were given their cap for representing New Zealand. So over 60s, they disappointed their results. They would, and they were, in their own words, very disappointed. But they'll be back. We will see them back in Trans-Tasman in future years. The development ladies and men's struggled, and now they, hopefully they understand the level that they need to
and I think it really bore out, and this is not a slur on any of the players whatsoever, but it quickly highlighted the difference of overall ability or delivery of results between the Australian scenario and ourselves, and we know that's always going to be a challenge. So for the high performance people, there is a gap there that's got to work through. I think to me the 2 highlights were the men's triples in the multi-nations. It sort of went a wee bit under the radar insofar as it's the first time that side have played together. Andrew Kelly had been called back in. Krista Leave was on debut playing right with Ali Forsyth, and they went through the multi-nations unbeaten. and they in fact beat Australia 3 times. Now that to me is possibly a bit of an not quite. I'm not going to say respected, but to me that was an amazing result for that new team to come out, and to me it highlighted the strength that is there. We just got to build on that. And the other highlight to me, funny enough, was a loss, but it was the Kelsey Cottrell Joe Edwards game in the Trans-Tasman when Joe was down, 18-19 to 3 or something, and all but clambered back to win the game, and was fact with her last bowl nearly did win the game, and that highlighted to me just the resilience and tenacity that Joe Edwards brings to that, and that's, I think, for all the players in the squad, it highlights that's what we've got to aspire to.
Look, and we shouldn't get political in this sort of stuff, but Joe Edwards should be a finalist just about every year for Sportswoman of the Year, and for whatever reasons, it doesn't happen that way. But she's a legend in our sport, and well respected internationally.
Well, that particular game to me just highlighted so much about her ability, and it got to the point when I made the comment during the commentary of Brendan Van Nistelrooy that Kelsey Cottrell was virtually getting the stutters to let a bowl go because Joe had come from nowhere to just about clinch it, and that to me was a highlight as well. So the bowls 3-5s all finished, done and dusted.
Yes.
Stoke, to me,
Stoked.
One of the other interesting things, isn't it? That last year's finalists, both the point share, of course, and Gore, were both in the last week playing for survival.
Yes, they were, weren't they?
They were the finalists last year.
Well, and I think, and due respect to both those sides, but it does show that the quality of the field, the competition this year stepped up. When you had, and I think we overplayed a little bit too much, but when you had Gary skipping one side in the final and Shannon skipping the other side, they're the two, you throw Ali into that equation as well, but certainly, top 3 players in this country.
Absolutely.
And they're leading their sides. That the competition stepped up considerably from last year. So it was a great final.
It was.
Very, very exciting final.
It was certainly swung from one to the other, didn't it?
Yeah. Ratings were good. Again, Sky used the words to us, pleasantly surprised. So I think that's always a positive.
It is.
For our sport. We got some things wrong, and we got a lot of things right. The miking of the players, the digital walls, the extension of the competition, the inclusion of the blackjacks, all real positives. Probably should never have got rid of the shot clock in hindsight, but we'll look to fix that one up going forward.
It's fixable.
Yep, and I think we're now looking at, and just extending this bowls 3-5 conversation a little bit, we're now looking at the interclub competition, seeing how we can make that more accessible for more clubs to play than what we, at the moment it's quite restrictive. It's an interclub, home and away. You've got to travel for a lot of clubs. They're travelling for an hour to play for an hour and then travelling home again. So we're looking to improve that. Won't be for this summer, but next year I think you'll see a bit of quite an overhaul of that Bowls 3-5 interclub competition. And I would suggest to you that part of that overhaul will probably see the 7th and 8th sides play off in some sort of series against the qualifiers coming up through. So there's a bit more movement between the TV league and the interclub as well going forward, and probably isn't quite as harsh in terms of a side being dropped entirely. They'll go and play in a sort of an interclub or into a qualifying series.
So there's no doubt that Bowls 3-5 now is a fixed part of the program, isn't it?
Yeah, and thanks Sky. And if I could encourage anything from whoever's watching this video, it's if you get a quick 3 minutes or 5 minutes, send an email to Sky.
Absolutely.
Saying that you enjoyed it. Or if there's things you want to improve, send that as well. But Sky, like any organisation, lives off that sort of feedback, and don't underestimate that one email. Does make a difference.
It does, and there's the success of any event is what you're prepared to change to make it a better event.
Yeah.
And obviously that will happen again next year. There'll be
we'll
a debrief of everything.
Yep.
And then changes are made accordingly. So, we can't let this escape as well without, and also it's a great team of workers that bring that whole Bowls 3-5 program together, not just from Sky, but Erin and others, of course, that bring it all together. So, well done to everybody.
Yeah, it's a great team, and Erin leads that team, and she did an exceptional job with it. What I do like to remind people of sometimes is that we do this on the snip of an oily rag. The budget that we have for Bowls 3-5 for 8 weeks, 3 nights a week television is incredibly small. So we rely on a lot of volunteers. We rely on a lot of sweat, a lot of long hours.
There's not fat margins in there, is there?
There's no margins in there at all. And we rely on teams and clubs to step up as well. Not only are they paying an entry fee, but they're also taking a couple of days off work every week.
So the other thing, Mark, is Newland's been the venue for the last 2 years.
Yep.
So with the advent now of a number of other complexes, so to speak, being built in Auckland, like e.g. I'll use Remuera as an example, is there a likelihood that other venues might come into consideration for the televised event, or is Newland going to be the home? Or
a little bit of a loaded question there, but look, we'll try and talk as straight as possible. It will be in Auckland, because for Sky,
obviously,
just the production it's there, so it'll be in Auckland for the next couple of years. Newlands, we've been well served by Newland for the last 2 years, so odds on that if Newland are happy, then we'll probably look to stay at Newland. We are talking already about another television league based around singles play, and that may well move, or probably will move to another venue or venues as we go forward. So I think there's other opportunities, but for now, for the next year or two, then chances are that if Newland's keen, then we'll stay.
Now we can't let it go by without, I'd say, putting out a congratulations to Paris Baker, the young Auckland girl playing under the Tongan flag, of course, who's been part of the New Zealand age group high performance program, etc., and venturing over to the World Under 25 Indoor Championships, and of course winning the prize singles event, and also being in the final of the mixed pairs. It's a great achievement by this young player.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and playing for Tonga, representing Tonga, I think is great as well. We look forward to seeing her development over the next few years, and who knows how these situations play out in terms of countries being represented.
But I think I think it's a great opportunity for us to congratulate Paris through this platform that. There's a lot of followers for him, as there was for Seamus and Natasha Russell. But for congratulations to Paris Baker for getting that accolade, and it's a great thrill for Tonga that they, in bowls they've won an international event, which is great.
It's a world event.
Yeah, it's a world event. Yeah, it is.
A world champion. Just before we leave the 3-5, just a thanks to the Parajacks for what they contributed to this year's edition of the league. They delivered everything we wanted, which was, but for one more win.
That's right.
They would have delivered absolutely everything. They were competitive. They showed to the New Zealand public once again that in a sport like bowls, it doesn't matter who you are, what limitation or that you may have. You can play the game of bowls, and you can play it competitively.
Well, they did that all right.
Yeah, so a big heartfelt thanks to the Parajacks. I think most were disappointed they got relegated, except for people from Point Chev. Alex is smiling in the background.
And Alex played very well, by the way, in that last round. Played outstandingly well, actually.
Well, he needed to, because otherwise work the next day was going to be pretty harsh for the poor fella.
He did play well.
Yeah, thanks to the Parajacks for what they delivered. Who knows what happens in the future. Next year, in November, they'll have the World Champs to contend with down in Christchurch. So they'll have a busy calendar.
With the World Champs, so is that a New Zealand side that's selected, or do players enter it?
No, players can enter it, actually.
Right, okay.
What happens, though, is that each country will nominate their player in each discipline that'll go towards a World Champs Cup or points, if that makes sense. So they can enter as many as they want, but they just nominate one player
as their
official representative, shall we say.
Now, haven't we also got a new event as well, just quickly, on the Masters over on the North Shore, North Harbour, is it February?
Mid to late February, around about the 16-20 or thereabouts, February.
So people can go on the Bowls New Zealand website, can't they, or Bowls North Harbour website.
I'll go onto ours. I'm pretty sure that there's a big flashing
I
lights.
saw a flashing the other day, so they can get on there and find out how the Masters works and
please support it. It's an important event for our calendar, as are all the Summer of Bowls events. If you can support that event, that'll be great in year one. I know that Bowls North Harbour and the crew there are putting a lot of effort into it. I have no doubt it'll be an exceptional event. Please get your entries in.
So, what's the plans for 2020?
More of the same. I think we're in danger of running too fast with some of this stuff as well. Add another TV league. We've got a World Champs coming up. We look to improve upon some of these things and really get back to that discussion we had around clubs and supporting clubs individually with change, whether that's a covered facility, whether that's a new artificial green, whether that's a business house league or opening up Sunday afternoons or whatever it might be. Let's be in that space.
Well, just I got a phone call just the other day, in fact, from Kiri, who have come across. They're going to put some artificial surfaces at Kiri.
Yes. And
the product that they're looking for is, there's only one of them to date, I believe, in New Zealand, and it's in Wanganui. And I'm about to get hold of Keith Slight, in fact, to make contact with the people in Kiri to see if we can get. And I believe it's actually a retirement village. I believe, So you're right. There's clubs out there, but I do think though, this is where Bowls New Zealand can play a part, because there's so many suppliers now of these artificial surfaces that there does need to be, I'd say, some. Let's get it right once.
Oh, absolutely. Look, our goal over the next 12 months is to try and get around every club in New Zealand individually. And hopefully the doors are...
Well, Kiri, I'd love to see you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not personally saying I'll get around all 500 clubs.
It's a nice spot up there, mate.
Kiri may be on that list. But to try and at least touch base and go... find out a bit more about their club and what they're doing, because it's important that we share, and then how can we support in any manner. So I know I was talking to Rob Davis. Rob Davis has been writing a whole lot of stories on our website for us, and some great little stories about people and clubs. And I was saying to Rob the other day, I said, mate, would you mind when you go into the club writing a story, can you talk to them about their club, and just find out some more information about the club and the people and what they're doing, etc. And then we can figure out how we can support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because the delivery of bowls is not Bowls New Zealand in this country. The deliverer of bowls are our community clubs. And we should never lose sight of that. We shouldn't think that we are anything more than a support role for those clubs.
Well, I think personally in the last 2 years we've built that, Bowls New Zealand and their partners have they've built the motorway that the government can't build. That things have happened, quickly, strongly, and really, move forward. And there hasn't been a whole lot of meetings and studies and research, etc. Got on, worked with the clubs, got the jobs done, listened to the bowling public, and it's now bearing fruit, isn't it?
Yeah, look, and a little bit of humility on our part though too. We haven't talked to everybody, and we haven't got it all right.
Correct.
But we've been prepared to do it, to work, and to move. We're sitting here in a Penrose office. In 12 months' time, this discussion will move our offices into a bowling club.
Correct.
Which is where we should be.
Yes.
We need to be within that delivery
with the sport.
With the sport and understand it. Us sitting in an industrial offices does not give us that perception.
No.
So we're moving, we're changing, not at a reasonably rapid pace, but we're still not accessing everybody. There are clubs in this country, that I'm still struggling to pronounce the name of, let alone visit.
Well, but as you see, the door's open, isn't it? So
yeah.
So 2019 has been a great year.
Yeah.
It's been a very good year. Internationally, it's been okay. We look forward to 2020.
Internationally, Asia Pacific's.
It was great, absolutely. Yes.
We've taken a real step forward. So.
We have, but we look forward to a big year next year.
Yes, we do.
With the Trans-Tasman and World Championships, etc. And so really, Mark, we're just about at the end of this year, so no doubt you'll want to, as I do, wish everybody all the best.
Yes, I'll go first and you can wrap it, shall you? A thank you and an acknowledgement for the work done through the year. Thank you to the clubs, to the many people that have supported the organisation and our sport and our communities over the past year. Thank you for that. Wishing them a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Look forward to seeing a number of people at the Summerset Nationals in January, and of course the Taranaki Open mid-January. Watch out, Section 2. There's a second year from skipping aside of first years from Riverhead Bowling Club. Have we talked about this already? I'm sure we have.
What clubs are you actually playing at? Do you know yet?
We're playing at 4. I know we're at Paratoot, Sea Green or whatever it is on the first.
Are you
day.
going to Lepperton?
No, I saw Vogeltown. I thought
Vogeltown, yes.
Vogeltown. I was trying to.
I don't want you to travel too far. That's not
No. Thank you, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and on behalf of the whole Bowls New Zealand team, our appreciation to the community for the support, and we look forward to 2020.
So, right, thank you for those kind wishes, Mark, to everybody out there, and this is the time of the year where I really enjoy being part of the whole bowls community, with the Summerset Nationals, of course, coming up, and a number of other events. Of course, the Taranaki Open 4 is one of the great events in the New Zealand bowls calendar. It's been going for 100-odd years, 100-plus years. Fantastic event. Burnside Piers.
Have they ever had a second-year champion with Taranaki Ports?
No, but you've got one. I'll give you a task, all right?
Yes.
To see if you can be the second team ever to draw the Taranaki Open 4s.
So you don't want us to win it then?
Just, you can become a Quinella of history with myself, all right? If that was
nice. Lovely, okay. lovely. Draw.
So we look forward, Alex and myself, as I say, from the Summerset Nationals. We'll be bringing you daily wraps of the day's play, updates of everything. And then, of course, we will be live with quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals right throughout at the Summerset Nationals in Christchurch. And it'll be my pleasure, along with Brenda Van Nistelrooy, to bring, and the team, to bring that live into the bowls community, and I know you'll enjoy it. So I just join Mark in wishing all of our followers and supporters and all the bowlers out there all the best of the festive season. Drive safely, have a great time with family and friends, and we'll be live in your lounge come the 2nd of January. Thank you very much.